a great game. Like, I did not, whenever the schedule comes out and you circle certain games that, okay, those are going to be, I am sitting down, I am tuned in, all of America will be watching that game. Jags Rams was not really one of those that at the beginning of the season, in August when the schedule drops, that I thought, okay, yeah, that's one that I'm going to be locked in for. But this is one that I will be locked in for, not just because it's a London game and not just because it's going to be on national television, but because this, I think, Fitz, is an opportunity for the Jags to finally be taken seriously. That I think they have our attention with the way that they've been winning games and the turnovers that they're forcing, the way that it feels like some of these Jags games have been a little drunk. But if you beat the Rams, who I view as a legitimate Super Bowl contender, if the Rams can stay healthy through the better part of a 17-game season, if the Jags can beat the Rams in front of all of us at 9:30 a.m. Eastern time, I will now be taking the Jags seriously from a team that can win games drunk and can turn teams over to a team that is a legitimate contender? Question mark.
Yeah. Well, look, these early kickoffs have us absolutely knackered. That means tired. That's a Britishism. And look, we're gonna think about absolutely knackered, and we're gonna have some a spot of tea while we do this. God, I'm just gonna keep going. The question for me is that look, we expect Puka Nacua will be out in this game. So then the question becomes, can Davante Adams really pick up that slack? And for me, Caroline, the answer to this is yes. Like, look, Davante Adams is still playing at an elite level. And I know that we don't pay as much attention to Davante Adams as we used to. And I'm not sure why that happened. I know we went to sort of purgatory where you had bad quarterbacks, bad teams. But this is Sean McVay and Davante Adams. Like, I think this is next man up, and you hear next man up all the time, but when next man up happens to be one of the most talented wide receivers of his generation, you're not asking Davante Adams to be the Davante Adams of old for an entire season. You're asking for it for a few weeks. I think that this is absolutely something Davante can deliver on. So I feel good about Davante being able to step in. What about you?
If you would have told our 2022-2023 selves that Davante Adams, who is a perennial 1,000-plus yard receiver every single year, versus Puka Nacua, who was a fifth-round pick in the 2023 draft, if you would have said, man, can that guy replace that guy? I would have said, what in the world are we talking about? What kind of an alternate universe are we talking about? But I think that's the genius of Sean McVay, that he can plug in guys like Cooper Kupp out of Eastern Michigan and Puka Nacua, a fifth-round pick, into this Rams offense and turn them into elite receivers, can turn them into receivers that are putting up the kind of numbers that the Justin Jeffersons, Jamar Chases, Jackson Smith, and Jigbas of the NFL have been putting up. So yes, Davante Adams is not the Davante Adams of old. That yes, Davante Adams now in year 11 in his career doesn't have the same level of speed or the same level of elite that we grew accustomed to. But that Sean McVay is going to be able to scheme Davante Adams open enough, even if it's this version of Davante Adams, that he can fill in for a game and play that role. The one thing that does concern me though, Fitz, is that level of speed, that you have Davante Adams that doesn't have the same quickness that he used to, and Matthew Stafford that is much more of a statue in the pocket than he is the kind of guy that can roll out and extend plays. So if Davante Adams doesn't have that same level of quickness, he can't get open as quickly. Is that going to leave the door open for Matthew Stafford to just get completely obliterated because he's going to be sitting back there in the pocket? That's the concern that I have. But overall, do I have confidence that Davante Adams can step up and fill that wide receiver one role in Puka Nacua's absence? Yes, I do.
Look, I think things could get a little dodgy, but I do think that they'll be able to figure it out. Now, if the Jags win this game, then are we just going to have to admit that they're a bloody good football team? I'll just keep going.
I think that we might have to acknowledge they are a bloody good footy team.
Okay.
That's I think that one's the last one. That felt wrong. But yes, I think
a little bit. That was a little gobsmacked.
There was a little gobsmackery in that one. Okay. I think even without Puka Nacua, I think that's a statement. And of course, if the Jags win this game and the Rams offense sputters, then we're going to couch that and say, okay, well, the Rams didn't have Puka Nacua. They didn't have their leading receiver. But still, even without Puka Nacua, this Rams team, the way that they're constructed, they have enough talent offensively and defensively for certain, to win a game even without Puka Nacua. So I think that if the Jags are able to find a way to win, even after, looking rough against the Seahawks last week, that I think if the Jags find a way to win, then yes, they are officially, not only have they been on my radar as a team to watch, they are on my radar as a contender. And then the NFC West gets that much freakier. The NFC West has been a weird little division, but if the Jags are able to take down the Rams a week removed from losing to the Seahawks, now how do we view the Seahawks? The transitive property is a very scary little game to play in football. It is any given Sunday. Every single week is different, but I think that'll change not only how I view this Jags team, but also how I view the Seahawks.
I think at some point, every season has a surprise team, and at some point during the course of that season, we have to have a long conversation, or as they like to say in British slang, a chinwag, as we try and figure out how to hold this team to the apparently that's what Google told me, how to hold this team to a new standard. And I think that's where the Jags are. Like, there are certain defining moments in a season where you say, okay, no matter what we think of the brand of this team or what we think of the past of this team, none of that matters. We crumple it up, we throw it away, and we say, who are they today? If the Jags win this game in London against the Rams, it's such a key win against a big opponent that's well coached with a great quarterback and a defensive line for the Rams that's just a problem maker. If you go out and you win this game, I think then, especially given how bad the AFC looks, now you have to step back and have a different conversation, because then all of a sudden it's like, no, no matter who the Jags have been in the past, I don't really care. Like, the NFL is so year to year at this point, it truly becomes a who are the Jags today? So if the Jags win this, I think it forces a different tone of conversation. That being said, if I had to bet, a castle in London on which one of these teams I would trust more to go to the Super Bowl, that's the Rams, and that's because we've seen it before, because it's Sean McVay and proof of concept. You know how much, Carolina, I respect proof of concept. So as good as this is for this moment is for the Jags, I have to acknowledge that part of the reason I just walk into this game trusting the Rams to be able to have a great year and a great week is because it is Matthew Stafford, and it is a defense that I think travels well, and it is a coach that we've seen in these Super Bowl moments before. So certainly, while I want to give the Jags their credit, I think it's also fair to look at it and say, I trust the Rams more today for the rest of this season.
I do. And I do view the Rams as legitimate Super Bowl contenders. And of course, that's couched with if you stay healthy. But of course, that's the couch that you have with every single team. I thought the Ravens were Super Bowl contenders until they got hurt and they got banged up. It's just a more of a concern for this Rams team, I think, just given the Matthew Stafford's back issues, given Matthew Stafford's age, given Davante Adams' age. If the Jags win, I will view them differently. But how will we view the Rams? If the Rams win this game, then okay, you took care of business, you're favored in this game, you move on and you live to die another day. But will we view the Rams any differently if they lose this game? Or maybe the better question is, how differently will we view the Rams? Will we chalk it up to, okay, well, they didn't have Puka Nacua and they're a different team with and without Puka Nacua? I don't think that's very, I think that would be disingenuous of us to say that.
I think that there are just certain teams that, because of their past and because of the trust we have in who they are in the field, we believe that they'll be okay. And whether that's right or wrong, that's just real. Like, most of us believe in our core at some point the Eagles will figure it out. The reason the Ravens are still somehow wildly predicted to make the playoffs is because we presume they'll figure it out. If the Rams lose, this is the benefit of the doubt that you get when you've sustained success for multiple years. Yeah. If the Rams lose, it's just a week. You live to see another week. And that's an unfortunate byproduct of the reality of how we cover the NFL. We cover the NFL with some presumption of what we've seen in the past and why it will trickle into what we see today. And that's part of why you're right. If the Rams lose this game, this guy's not falling. The Rams have plenty of time to get it right. It'll be fine. And they're still even at 4-3 with a loss, are the Rams slipping away? No. Will we give the same grace to the Jags? Probably not. And that's just reality to how we cover it.
And that goes back to benefits of the doubt. It's kind of the benefit of the doubt that we don't give the Jags, because the Jags don't traditionally do this, because the Jags have a first-year head coach, because we're not quite sure about the Jags quarterback, about what is Trevor Lawrence. He's not in that elite tier, but what is he? Is he average? Is he above average? We give that benefit of the doubt because the Rams have earned it. It's the same thing with the Chiefs. Even when the Chiefs dropped to 0-2 to start the season, I still gave the Chiefs the benefit of the doubt because it's Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. And that has clearly, if this past week has shown us anything, that is a benefit of the doubt that they earned and they deserve for a reason. You're right. If the Rams lose this game, and of course I think that the process matters. It's not just win and loss and what's your record and where do you stand in the division. If the Rams lose a really close game just because the Jags are a pesky little team that find ways to turn you over, and the Rams lose because they miss a 57-yard field goal, okay, like that's one way to lose. If the Rams get absolutely dominated, then we can start to have the conversation of how big of a piece of Puka Nacua is he to this Rams offense? Like, is Puka Nacua, of course, we know he's important to this offense, but is he even more important than any of us could have assumed? And on the other side of it, it's if the Jags absolutely dominate the Rams, then absolutely we need to be looking at this Jags team differently. So process is important, but if we just want to look at it from a binary scale of win and loss, a loss for the Rams doesn't completely change the way that I view this Rams team. But this division is funky. This is a funky little division. And I think every win, even an AFC win, an out of conference and an out of division win, is going to be valuable when you look at the standings of this division and how close I think it will be once we get into December.
That crowd in London is going to be full of beans. A British slang that means full of energy. Apparently not the way that we use it here. There we go.